Welcome to the Invincible Innovation Show, the podcast for changemakers. Each week, I talk to the most fascinating entrepreneurs and innovation leaders about innovation, strategy, and design. Hey, everyone. Today, we're going to talk about leading others during a period of emotional exhaustion. Welcome to Invincible Innovation Live Show. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm Mazor, Kario, product innovation and value creation expert, and I'll be your host. And today I have a very, very special guest. Hey, Michelle.
Hi, Eddie. How are you?
I'm good. So my guest today is Michelle E. Dickinson, and she's a resilient coach and a workplace mental health strategist. And I'm sure you're going to have a really, really nice conversation. It's already started. So I'm going to tell you a bit about Michelle. Michelle's goal is to eliminate the stigma by normalizing the mental health conversation in workplace and beyond. She partners with innovative leaders to bring mental health strategies to their organizations. So we have like a really good start. We're live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, and you're so invited to join the discussion and would love to hear what you think. And now we can start. So we have this really big, I think, topic. So let's start with how to cultivate resilient team.
Yeah, that's a question I get all the time. And I get it from my corporate clients and I get it from my one-on-one clients who want to help themselves. They want to help their family, their friends, their colleagues. And, it comes down to what are you doing every day? I believe that when we talk about mental health, there are absolutely things that we can be doing to preserve our emotional well-being and also to boost our resilience. So the first thing I do with my clients is we go through a resilience audit and we really look at like every single thing that they're doing. What is their routine like? Because with small micro changes, they can start to feel better and feel more empowered just by making small changes in their routine. So I think resilience is really a daily practice. It's not something that we can think about like we'll go get some resilience at the store and come home. It's something you got to do every day.
Yeah. So what we're talking about like getting some rest, going to the sun, going outside, meeting people. So give me like some of the tips that are related to resilience.
What do you do first thing you wake up in the morning? What are you doing? Are you grabbing this or are you taking some time for yourself? Are you sitting in prayer or are you sitting in meditation? Are you getting present to the abundance in your life? Oftentimes, out of habit, we turn on the news and our mind and our subconscious mind, we're consuming everything that's wrong with the world, right? Everything that's wrong, all the upset, all the pain. And the first hour when we wake up, it is the most tender hour for our brain. So what we choose to do in that first hour sets the tone for our entire day. So I always tell people sit for a few minutes or, practice a gratitude strategy, do a journal entry or, go for a run or do something physical for your body. Do something that is going to nourish yourself instead of deplete yourself already.
So when we're talking about resilient teams, we're talking with a group of people that first take care of themselves from the beginning, taking responsibility for their own resilience. And then they could be a good team. It's not enough to have one leader and that's enough.
Right, exactly. But you have to have a leader, and I know we're going to talk about this. You have to have a leader that is modeling these things as well, right? You can't expect to have a resilient team when you don't even demonstrate, that you care about your own well-being and you make you have the personal boundaries in place to take care of yourself. And it's important. Individuals have to take accountability, but leaders have to show what does that look like, and how do I make sure that I show up the best version of myself for you and serve you as my staff.
Yeah. And more than that, I think that leaders need to understand that this is something that they should attend to in their team. So just thinking about the resilient and the well-being of their team is more than just, once in a while giving them a raise or just, we are having a fun day out with all of the team once in a quarter or a year, whatever.
Yeah.
It's not enough.
Right. It definitely, I say this to most of the women that I coach. I'm like, you cannot expect to undo compounded stress with a trip to the spa, with, the birthday massage. Like we have to take care of our emotional well-being and preserve our mental health and our resiliency through daily practices so that we don't find ourselves depleted and on the pathway to burnout. And that's something that, a lot of people are talking about now, but it starts every single day, every morning when you wake up, and what your practices are.
Sure. I'm very happy that we're having this conversation, after these like very hard 2 years. And
Yes.
according to Forbes, more than 69% of employees are experienced burnout symptoms while
Yes.
working from home. So what do you think companies should do? And should they say, okay, we're going back to the office and that's it?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think when you look at the data, burnout was at its highest when everybody started to work from home. And you would have thought it would have been the other way around. But the problem is people didn't have personal boundaries. They no longer had the bookends of the day where I drive to the office, I do my work, and then I drive home. It was mornings were blending into afternoons, we're blending into evenings, we're blending into, after dinner time. So people were wanting to be dedicated, and in that they were like not having personal boundaries to be able to say, I work from this time to this time. So that was why so many people were burning out. And I don't think, and people are asking me this question quite frequently now, it's not about where you work. Yes, it's great to be in a community at work, in the office, connected to people. And that's so healthy for our human nature. We are people, like we need to be around
Sure.
others. I think
Sure.
what it boils down to is are your staff members equipped and aware, self-aware of what they need for themselves, regardless of where they're working, and are they taking that seriously and not, giving up their power to an employer that's going to dictate whether or not they take care of themselves. I always say to my clients, like, nobody's going to come along and say, you have too much stress on your plate, let me take that away, so now you have some time to go take care of yourself. It doesn't work that way. We have to be a little bit selfish and a little bit have non-negotiable routines where we're really taking care of ourselves.
Yeah. I think it's not a question of being selfish. I think it's a question of being aware of your boundaries and your energy and where you are and what you need, because we're appreciating people who overwork themselves so much, and it's like an addiction that everybody's like really appreciating that somebody's workaholic.
Yeah,
While it's not good. You
it's
get all
not.
the great feedback, but is it good for you all the time?
Yeah,
That's a good question.
and that's a challenge for leaders. Do you want your employees burning out to fulfill on deliverables, or do you want them healthy so they can fulfill on deliverables and stay the course? So if a leader is repeatedly praising someone who's working around the clock, we can all do short sprints. Absolutely. I'm not saying that. When there's work to be done, you got to do it. There's no question about it. But in the long haul, like, are you praising performance? Are you praising, balanced behavior? Because what you're doing sets the tone for everybody on the team. So I put that back on leaders to say, find the right balance and the right opportunity to praise.
Yeah. I think that as a society, we're not really aware sometimes that there is a price for being this way.
Yeah.
And it's like we're running all the time. Sometimes we don't even know the direction. We're just
Yeah.
doing it.
Yes.
And I think that during these 2.5 years, people needed to find a different compass for themselves in a sense.
Right. Oh,
And
for
then,
sure.
so how do you see that?
It's very interesting. I get this question a lot because a lot of people took the pandemic as an opportunity to look in the mirror and say, is this what I want to do? I mean, and we're hearing it all. We're still hearing the great resignation and people getting present to, is this what I want to do? Is this the employer I want to work for? Did they take care of me during COVID? Did they, am I feeling appreciated? Do I have the balance that I want in my life? So it's really kind of cool to see the consciousness like raising and people becoming truly aware of what matters. And and to see employers stepping up and offering, different creative ways to remain competitive and, take care of their people in a new way. So I think we're on the right path. I think you're going to find, at the end of the day, a person who's truly engaged and content in the work they're doing, it equals performance. It equals performance. It equals, meeting deliverables. So you want the right people in the seat more than you want just people in the seat. So you have to really think about what is it that people are looking for now. And, and it could just be flexibility. It could just be, building more trust and having better rapport and allowing people to have those practices that nourish them so they get to show up the best version of themselves for work, but guess what? For their families, because that's really what matters.
Right. I think that people found out that yeah, work is fulfilling and is important, and this is how you make money, right?
Yes.
But sometimes you find out that most of your time when you're awake, you're at home and in front of a screen for the work.
Yes.
And people, I think, understand the impact that this has on their life because they have the possibility to do something else. Because if
Yes.
they're at home, they could go and do something else and they could move.
Yep.
And when they're in the office, it's just closing you in the office.
Yep.
And you have less possibilities in that sense. What do you think employers have changed? You mentioned that they're changing their way of seeing that.
It's refreshing. The employers that I'm working with, they're offering, programs like I offer, other people offer. They're stepping beyond the EAP 800 number and benefits. They're saying, what else can we be doing to really help our people? I think it is the conversation on how do I build individual resilience? How do I train my people to lead in a post-COVID world? How do I train my leaders to really know how do I safely engage with an employee if I suspect that they're struggling? Because there's never been a more important time than to have our leaders like amped up with emotional intelligence and awareness and learning different strategies on how they can be a better support. So I see that. I see companies moving to coaching. They're offering coaching services, right? Like maybe somebody isn't like, I need a clinician. Maybe I need a support. Maybe, a coach, the term coach is less intimidating. So maybe it's, I offer a roster of coaches and my people can plug into them and get support. And, maybe that's all they need, but it's having, they're thinking differently. They're thinking outside the box in terms of what does support look like for my people. And I love the opportunity to work with companies that are really doing, really stepping it up and doing more.
Yeah. I think that in the past, when you had like someone guide you or coach you in work, it was specific to your role. So how do
Right.
you get a better manager, or only managers would get coaches, or something which is like only contributing to you as this specific role in the company? And now we understand that in order to allow people to be more creative and open-minded, they need to have a coach that is not specifically teaching you how to do strategy, how to do technical stuff, how to do some kind of a routine or program.
Right. Exactly. And it's interesting because, the people that I'm coaching in the corporate setting, so I have my own clients, but then I also have corporate clients that I'm coaching, they just need a little bit of support. They're just like, okay, so if I keep doing the same thing, the way I'm doing it, I'm probably going to burn out in 6 months. So what is it that I can be doing a little bit differently so that I can sustain the marathon, and it's just recentering. It's just, getting them present to little things that they can be doing every single day. It's not that big of a deal. It really isn't. It's not like, you got to overhaul your life here. It's just, maybe I need a few sessions with a coach. It's going to help me get back on track so that I don't, burn myself out.
Yeah, I think that sometimes leaders maybe thought that this would encourage people to leave the company or to try something else than what they're doing right now. And they wanted it to be very focused on what is the benefit that we get from this specific role in this specific person. And now
Yes.
they understand that if they're pleased in general,
Yes.
they would stay.
Of course. Of course. I mean, give your people the opportunity to show up the best version of themselves. Give them the tools to show up the best version of themselves. It's a win-win for the company and for the employee.
Yeah, I think that I feel that a bit like in Israel. I don't think that we have that companies that have coaches, but many are mistaken. But I
Mhm.
feel that they know that these people would come back, even if they do leave. They are speaking good words about your company when they do leave, and they'll bring you good people afterwards, and maybe they'll come after they're trained in another company and do something that you need from them. So it's just seeing
Right.
that as a goodwill that you're doing for your employees, and it's something that pays off.
Absolutely. You know, I have I'd say one of my favorite clients that I work with. So I come from a pharma background, and I used to work at Johnson and Johnson, and we had this thing called the Credo, and the Credo was the measurement of employee satisfaction. And we would run this thing every year, sometimes twice a year, and it would just really give us the pulse of how people were feeling. And my one client has the same mentality. They are committed to understanding what is the current culture like. What are employees engaged? You know, are they engaged? How are they feeling? What are they asking for? It's brilliant, because what that does is it builds a culture where they feel like their voice matters, and leadership's truly aware of what's going on, right? And so I can see their commitment and wanting to keep an engaged, healthy workforce, and it's just so inspiring. And you know, when we're talking about preserving emotional well-being, preserving engagement in the workplace, we have to be thinking about trust. We have to be thinking about, you know, how are we cultivating trust? How are we showing up for our people? How are we connected to our people? Do we really know how they're doing? We have to do those things if we want to really keep a good, healthy workforce.
Yeah. So I want to talk to you about depression and anxiety, when
Mhm.
about the workforce and the connection between these two um, things that we hear all the time around us. And according to the CDC, 1 in 3 Americans are dealing with depression or anxiety due to the pandemic. And how do you think it impacts the awareness of mental health in organizations and what they're doing with it?
Yeah, it's so prevalent, and especially coming out of the pandemic, people who had never experienced any kind of mental health imbalance for the first time were experiencing symptoms of anxiety. And you know, or if they were you know, struggling a little bit before the pandemic, that actually pushed them further. So more people are struggling than not. But the problem that I see is people are very quick to diminish how they're really doing, because they say, we all went through this pandemic, and you know what, I'm okay, I have a job, I'm okay, you know, my partner didn't lose their job, and you know, we're okay, so who am I to complain? So I think the biggest thing that we need to realize is we can't be diminishing how we're doing, because if we diminish how we're doing, then we're on a slow boat for a disaster. So it's the acknowledgement on how you're feeling, and it's normalizing the conversation. I say this all the time, because if we can normalize the conversation, then people, you give them permission to connect to really what's going on within them. And so I say, talk about mental health in the workplace, but you don't have to talk about yourself. You could talk about the celebrity. You could talk about the athlete, the, you know, pro football player who decided to talk about his anxiety. Just talking about it sort of makes people a little bit more comfortable about it, and less resistant to getting curious about their own feelings and what they're dealing with. So I think we have such a great opportunity to just be talking about it more, because there is so many people are suffering in silence. So many people aren't willing to look in the mirror and say, I could use some support, whatever that looks like. And we all have a role. We all have a role. We can create a ripple effect just by opening the conversation.
Do you think that in workplace they're open to hear this kind of conversation? I'm just imagining
Yes.
somebody like one of your employees calling you and telling you, you know what, like in the next few days I'm gonna stay at home. I'm a bit depressed. I have this anxiety attack right now that I cannot really handle.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure that they're open to this kind of discussion. Maybe even if it was regular health, they wouldn't really want to know that you have an headache or something's wrong with your back. But telling
Yeah,
your manager that something is wrong with your mental health is, I
is
know,
daunting. Yeah, and
yeah,
maybe unrealistic. I think what this all goes back to is, what's your culture like? Do you have a culture where you have a trusting rapport between leader and direct report? Is there trust? And that's something that I teach in my leader program. As I say, you have to be cultivating trust every day. So when you have an employee who may be struggling, they are comfortable reaching out and saying, I just need a day. I need a mental health day. You don't have to get into the details. What I mean, like, you wouldn't say like the symptoms you were having physically. Why would you feel like you needed to? But it's
mhm,
the normalizing of just acknowledging, hey, I need a day, um, and having a boss that has a rapport with you, a trusting rapport with you, who knows you, who can pick up on those shifts in behaviors and say, I noticed you are like this, and who I know you to be is like that. Are you okay? Is there anything I can do to support you? And I think if we just take a step back, I say this all the time, Addie, take a step back and return to our humanness, return to our heart, and just genuinely care for each other as humans. It doesn't have to be this big thing where you got to call your boss and tell them that you're having thoughts. It's like, look, I just need a day. I'm going to take care of me. Thank you for this space.
yeah. I understand what you're saying, that we need to respect the fact that some people do need that in order to recuperate and to get the energies back. And right now we have many of them. We have many people that they would feel much more comfortable to say that I have a headache or a back pain
Yeah, of course.
instead.
Of course.
And this is usually what they're saying, I guess.
It is.
Um,
It is. But
eh,
that's also a reflection of the culture, the relationship. So there's a lot of things companies can be doing to cultivate a culture of compassion, so that it's not, I got to lie, I have a stomach ache. And in reality, my anxiety is taking over today.
do you think that they are more aware of that aspect right now? The leaders, the companies, they know more about that?
I think so. I think the conversation has been elevated since COVID. I mean, just looking at the data and how many people are struggling. I mean, I think you I think companies who aren't looking at it are in trouble, but I think a lot of companies know they have a workforce that has been affected by a global pandemic, and they have people. And if they have people, they're people, you have a percentage of your people that are struggling.
Yeah. So, what would you say to these people who are suffering from mental illness, or what would you tell their manager, and how would they address that?
Yeah, I think the first thing is, like, I always tell people, let's start to relate to mental health as a continuum, right? There's a continuum. When we get into labels, mentally ill, mentally well, it sort of creates an exacerbated reaction. So at any given point, we're gliding across a continuum. Some days we're going to be up, some days we're going to be, at the other end of the continuum. Life events are going to come at us. Um, and I think we need to be okay with not being okay, fundamentally, right? And acknowledging that you're not okay is the first step in getting support and returning yourself to joy. I think at any point, if you look in the mirror and you don't have the joy that you know you can have, you really got to stop and look and say, what is it that I need to do differently? Because if I keep doing the same thing, I'm not going to get a different result. So for the employee, I say, be brutally honest with yourself. Like, I do this thing in my workshop where I ask people to get present every morning to how they're doing. And if they're below the line, they need to take a different action that day and lean into something they know that's going to elevate their mood and elevate their feeling. And if it's consistent over a period of time, you need to have the courage to reach out and get a clinical appointment, get an appointment with a therapist. I mean, do not allow it to prolong. If your sleep is compromised, if your eating habits are compromised, those are all things that, you're doing yourself a disservice by thinking you can just power through. So first and foremost, though, I always ask people, get present to how you're feeling. And if you know that getting in a run at lunchtime is going to help you, or picking up the phone and connecting with a friend or a family member and getting it off your chest is going to help you, do that. But oftentimes we rush into our day and we don't even check in with ourselves. So first and foremost, check in with yourself. As for employers, again, it's just the observation of behaviors, changing over time. You should know what's expected behavior from your staff. And if it deviates from that, you should also know, okay, well, maybe I need to check in and say, hey, is everything okay? And offer support and offer ears. A lot of times our leaders are not comfortable engaging because they're so afraid they're going to say the wrong thing. Here in the US, we live in a very litigious world. People, I'm going to say the wrong thing, I'm going to be sued, or, I'm not a clinician, I don't know how to fix it. You don't have to know how to fix it. I always say, show up with 2 ears and just listen and just be there and be present and connect them to the resources that your company is probably already providing and they just don't know about. So
Yeah, I agree that listening in general is underestimated.
absolutely.
And it's not only in that context. I think that leaders think that sometimes they're expected to provide solutions all the time and
I
to
know.
say what they think all the time. And sometimes all they need to do is really listen and listen well.
Mm-hmm.
And for sure, in that case, when people are trying to, you said something about connecting to your humaneness, right?
Yes.
Being human, right?
Yeah.
So it's only human for you. You're a human and they're a human, and you're just listening to what they're going through. That's it. It's not like you don't need to have any solution right now.
Right.
And if you are not sure what is the right thing to say, you could say, okay, I really listen. I'll think about it.
Yes.
I promise you that I will think about what you're saying. You don't have to be like at that moment have the magic in order to solve it,
Right.
but just be there.
Right.
Um,
But you're
which
right.
is
As
so
leaders, we want to fix it. As leaders, we want to give you a prescription, go and do this, this, and this, and you'll be fine. Or even worse, when I had that, I did. Oh, do not do
yeah.
that. Like, do not assert.
Yeah,
Just listen.
yeah.
Just truly listen. That could be the greatest gift that you give someone who might be struggling.
Yeah, I think that in general, people sometimes think that they don't have a role. They are not important. They are not influencing if they don't have this set of expertise or skills or goals that they met. And if people would just understand that being next to someone and listening to someone is so precious,
So
people
precious.
do need it.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
you're needed
Yeah.
as a person, as part
Absolutely.
of the team. And I
Yeah.
think it's the same for a team member. Even if it's not a friend, not somebody that you really know, the fact that you're aware that they're a bit different and maybe they're a bit lower and the energy
Hmm.
is a bit lower, you see that.
Yes.
And you can ignore it, like most of us,
Step
but you
over.
could do something.
Well,
Yeah.
here's the problem with that. It's uncomfortable, right? Let's make it comfortable. Like, honestly, more people step over or look away and make the assumption someone else is going to address it, and you might be the only person who's willing to courageously say, "I'm here. I'll listen. What's going on?" You know what I mean? So have that courage to not look away. Have that courage to really say, "You seem low." Right? Because that can make all the difference. All the difference.
Yeah. I think it's even more important when we're working from home and you don't really meet the people.
Yes.
When you're saying, I'm here, it's like I have this context of us being, we're not really here. We're just talking and you're not here. And sometimes it's really the only people that you meet when you go out of your home to the office space or to somewhere. And these are the people that are really next to you. They're
Yes.
really here.
Mm-hmm.
So being aware that the fact that somebody is like close, maybe their parents and family are miles and miles away, hours flight away,
Right.
and you're the person that's just there next to them, and you're the one that could
Make a
listen.
difference.
Or
Right. And make a difference just by listening. Right. It's so
yeah,
true.
I think that people sometimes forget that we're like we need the crowd, we need the people around
We
us.
do.
Just we don't have to talk to them all the time. Like people are intimidated by the fact that no, we don't need people all around us all the time. But just the fact that somebody's next to you is so
Right.
important,
Oh my
that you're
goodness.
not alone.
You are speaking, as an entrepreneur. So there's a whole other can of worms with being an entrepreneur, I will say. But like as an entrepreneur, sometimes I just go to a coffee shop just because I know there's going to be people around me. And
Right.
being alone is great. Don't get me wrong, I'm an introvert by nature, but sitting in a coffee house with hustling people around is actually it does something for me. So I agree with you.
Sure. At first, I'm an extrovert, so I'm the other way around. But still, I do feel that sometimes just having people around you, it's like this is what we're supposed to be in this kind of a village,
Yes.
surrounded by people,
Yes.
and
Connection.
like yeah, and they know us, and we're just walking, and we know people around us, and I think that we're missing that, especially right now when people are moving all the time and changing places and changing workplace, and some of them working from home, some are not getting to the office, and it's like you feel that it is missing, and you're not sure what is it.
Right.
And sometimes people feel alone, and they're not even thinking that the fact that they're isolated is they're not going even to buy something. It's all
Right.
like to your doorstep. It's
Right.
like even small things. You don't have to have the best friends around. Just going and seeing people,
Yes.
going outside.
It's good for you. Oh, totally. Absolutely. Yeah.
So what can we do to care for ourselves and our loved ones, and to have a better emotional well-being in this very strange situation that we're just talking about?
So I mentioned a few earlier, so I'll recap
Right.
sort of what we shared. So the first thing I would say is have the courage to look in the mirror and ask yourself how you're doing every day.
Yeah.
Like when we wake up in the morning, and if we've worked out too hard at the gym the day before, that body part is crying out for attention. But the same doesn't necessarily hold true with our emotional well-being. So we really have to make a conscious effort to say, check in with yourself. How am I feeling? How am I feeling? What do I need? Because if you can address it before it feels worse, that's what we want to do. So I say, check in with yourself. Have a practice where your first hour of your day includes some type of quiet time, some type of meditation or prayer, or just sitting in silence, maybe watching the flicker of a candle, to start your day off feeling grounded and calm. I think a lot of times we rush into our day. The cortisol is through the roof. We're immediately confronted with stress. I notice a big difference for me when I do that. And then the other thing that I always want people to be present to is, yes, we've been through a pandemic. There's a lot of stuff that has changed, right? We live in a new world, right? But I bet you have avalanches of abundance in front of you, and just getting yourself to present to what is the good stuff I have to be thankful for. That's huge, because you're already coming at the day with glass half full. I got my needs met. I have a roof over my head. I had a great cup of coffee, whatever it is. Just get present to the abundance in your life, because that's going to set you off in the right direction.
Sure. And do you think that this is something that is relevant for me as an employee, or just as a person that goes outside? Like we're talking about being efficient at
Everybody.
work.
Yeah, everybody should be doing this.
Yeah.
Everybody should be self-aware, finding quiet in the morning, practicing gratitude for what they do have, and giving themselves a fighting chance in their day to mitigate and navigate all the stress that inevitably is going to come at them.
Yeah. So we're talking about what me as an individual could
Mhm,
do,
mhm.
but could you tell us about what a culture of compassion could look like for
Oh,
a company?
absolutely. Yeah. And these are, they might sound very simplistic, but they're very important. And organizations that want to be more, um, I guess, conscientious of their culture around people who might be struggling with anxiety, depression, any type of emotional challenge, there are little things you can be doing. So the first is having a clear vision and a commitment of inclusion for people with any type of mental health challenges, but having that at the highest levels of the organization and having it backed by policies that say we are an organization that is inclusive of everybody, of all of their abilities, and that's our remit. Having robust mental health care, right? As an organization, you might have benefits, but how is your mental health benefits? Are your employees calling only to say they can't see a doctor for 3-4 months? And are there barriers you can remove to getting them quick access if they need it? Education and training of people leaders. We've spoken about this. It's so important to equip leaders to lead in a new world. I mean, I have a program leading during a period of emotional exhaustion, what you've named this, to help leaders be more empowered and not be so nervous about engaging with an employee they suspect is struggling. So really empowering and educating your people leaders. A structured employee, maybe peer group or employee resource group for emotional health, mental health, bringing people together to support one another within the company, and strategize. Oh, did you know we had this resource? Oh, well, I feel less alone that, oh, you're dealing with something too. Oh, you navigated something and you came out the other side. Brilliant opportunity to get people connected to other colleagues who have come out the other side. That's hope. That's the best thing you can do. And then, having a culture of trust, employers, like leaders and employees, like really working at having more trust between one another. And then maybe even an employee sharing platform eventually when you get there. I mean, when I was at Johnson & Johnson, they had a TED stage. I was able to tell my story on a TED stage. Not every organization has that ability, but what you could do is pull people together for, a lunch and learn, and maybe you have some employees who are willing to just say, hey, I've been there, I navigated it, I'm good. And if you're struggling, you're going to be okay.
Yeah, I love the program that you bring employees together, even
Yeah.
group them in small groups or in couples,
Yeah.
because this is getting them really connected, and connection is really missing. And this is what brings you engagement and commitment to your workplace when you're connected to the people. It's like it's not this big organization and general theme or strategy. It's like the people that you belong to and your managers. These are the reasons that you would stay in where you are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there's no better. I mean, employee resource groups have been around for a very long time to bring people together so they felt a sense of being a part of something. And I think when you talk about mental health, that's like such a great way to really empower and, elevate the conversation. You have a group of people willing to, lean on each other and connect.
Yeah, it sounds really, really interesting. So, what is your number one tip for leaders today?
Model mental health hygiene. Model it. Do it. Say, hey, you know what? I'm unavailable at lunchtime because I need to go do this, this, and this to take care of me. Make it okay to talk about what you do to take care of you, because people watch what you do more than listen to what you say. So really modeling good mental health hygiene is one of the greatest things that a leader can do, and cultivating trust so that, God forbid you have an employee that has a major life event, they feel comfortable coming to you and talking to you and, openly saying, I might need a few days.
Yeah. And I'm just saying in brackets that the fact that you're doing it, you're open-minded that everyone else could do that. It's not like you're privileged as a manager.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
That's important. Okay. So we're almost done. So could you tell us where people could hear more about you and your programs?
So LinkedIn is legit my second home. I am on LinkedIn all the time. So absolutely hit me up there. I'd be happy to talk to you about my resilience coaching, my leader programs. Absolutely love the work that I get to do every day. And I love to connect with people. So yeah, reach out to me there.
Sure. And this is where I found you, which is a good start in any case. So I want to thank you for your time, and I really enjoyed our conversation. So thank you, Michelle.
Me too, Eddie. Thanks for having me.
And to all of you change makers out there, thank you for joining us. And if you want to learn more about what I do, go to invincibleinnovation.com. And I'll see you next week with another innovative, insightful talk. See ya. I'm Mazor Kario, and you've been listening to the Invincible Innovation Podcast. Make sure to visit our website, invincibleinnovation.com, where you can learn more about our programs and my book, Innovating Through Chaos. I'll be waiting for you next week in our next episode. Thank you for listening.